Hey, I'm just an average Joe who, over time, as I pass by people and places, I've come to realize that we've allowed some really stupid and weak people following paid agitators to take control of our lives. Just by yelling and screaming and drowning out everyone with a different point of view, they monopolize the media by having protests disrupt the normalcy of society by blocking traffic, creating disorder, and doing everything they can to disturb and eventually stop commerce and even now education. And every day it gets crazier than the day before, distracting away from everything that's really important to our lives. Today our news focused on the riots at Columbia again, joined by other dim-witted students at many other schools who don't understand that without the education they're paying for, eventually the only job they'll be qualified for is as a paid protester, like those standing alongside them, with most not even understanding what they're protesting. Just ask them what they hope to accomplish by stopping everyone else from succeeding in life, and they can't tell you. Reminds me back when I was teaching human behavior and we discussed what motivated people to give up their comfortable surroundings and get involved in protests. Now, there are those who feel strong enough to join together yelling to each other about injustices that they perceive, but many also attend a protest primarily as a form of socialization, even though they're not educated enough on issues to give a reason to be there. Of course, it's been happening more after the pandemic, which isolated so many of us from not only getting involved in things we were concerned about, but also that prevented us from crossing paths with others who are also seeking some of the same personal contact. So while joining a BLM uprising may seem an extreme way to make friends, it's not so far-fetched to those, you find those on both sides of issues looking for an excuse to search for those like-minded or just be part of a crowd. It's kind of like when smokers would, join together on a smoke break, giving one a sense of belonging. But their problem becomes our problem when these paid agitators and misinformed, socially starved students become part of an organized efforts to tear apart our social fabric of education using the Israeli-Hamas conflict as its flashpoint. And then to begin it all at Columbia of all places. I mean, come on. Columbia used to be a bastion of liberal thought. Loved it. A great place to learn and listen, engage in debate rather than the violent threats they're reporting on. I remember years ago, I used to audit a couple of classes there so I could play on their rugby team, Old Blue, with a great bunch of smart, tough, educated professionals who didn't mind hanging up their suits and getting dirty and bruised for the team. And we didn't argue about politics. We were there to use our talents to win for us in Columbia, since we had already used our education to learn and get a good job so we could fool around playing rugby. And for me, it was a long subway ride from Wall Street, where I worked, up to the West Harlem Columbia station at 116th Street. You also need to know that within a subway ride of Columbia is the second largest Jewish population in the world, next to one of the largest Muslim populations in the United States. And the purpose of going to such a university was the exposure to different points of view so we could learn and formulate and express our opinions so our voices and meaning in our private and public lives. But all that just changed when the protesters showed that only one point of view was allowed. And were given the TV time they craved that made them seem more important than we were, even yelling, "We are Hamas," from some of the agitating protesters just outside the school. And you could tell there were a few marketing majors who understood to get attention, they needed to up the ante by burning flags and changing the rhetoric from the worn-out river to the sea that few of them understood, to death to America, and added expressions lacking the sympathy toward the Palestinian people that at one point seemed to be a good cause. The protests then became hijacked and identified with those who tortured and mutilated Jewish women and babies, and were now hiding behind similar Palestinian women and their babies as shields who are becoming collateral damages in Israel's attempt to eliminate Hamas and free the hostages. So now it evolved having these misguided students and those from the outside the university, not just protesting the issues between Israel and Hamas, but protesting students, professors, administrators, having the right to learn and teach and run a free-thinking university that allows for exchange of opinions and ideally expressions of fact. And now we have a rabbi suggesting that Jewish students not attend class due to fear of harm, and schools canceling classes and commencement for those who worked hard and spent a lot of money to get a degree. Of course, that's just going to stifle any chance of success these students will get from a good education. And that's one big win for anti-Semites. So the work of education stops as all the students miss out on learning to get a good job, which of course the university is responsible for and should refund their tuition and expenses rather than tell them there's nothing that can be done. And while they're at it, they should at least fire the university president if she's lost control, and then maybe have the board replace her with a qualified Jew that I'm sure has been passed over from previous searches. And the same with the mayor, who can't control what's going on as he focuses on catering to protecting illegal migrants. Also, with Columbia's association with its neighbor Barnard College for Women, you'd think women's groups would be concerned about the halt of their education, with parents thinking twice about the danger of their kids at both schools. Where's that piece of crap, that leader of the U.S. Senate, Chuck Schumer, who happens to not only represent New York, but himself is Jewish? You'd think he had the power to fix all this stuff since he got away with threatening the Supreme Court justices, remember? When anyone else would have been put in prison. But now he sits idly by and says nothing. Coward. Kind of shows us that voters sometimes have more allegiance to political parties than the practice of their religion. You know, as I remember Columbia, there were a whole lot more Jewish students than there are idiot protesters who would rather waste their time than learn. So maybe instead of ceding the promise of education to those without such ambitions, why don't the Jewish students and supporters and others who want an education launch a counter demonstration and get some publicity, yelling and holding signs saying, go back to Iran, join Hamas and use babies as protection, free the hostages, or boycott a football game and see what happens. Maybe even put up an information booth so that the brain-dead followers can hear the truth. But right now we have a media that's showing the world what our freedom was worth to one group as it's taken away from another, along with the evolution of a dysfunctional society. And it's showing what a waste of time it has been it is to have some of these kids go to college, since they're not going to contribute anything to society when they graduate. They can't even listen to two sides of a story and pick out the truth. And they want us to pick up their student loans? And look at the decisions they're making. I mean, if I was going to protest at UCLA in Southern California, I'd go out and I'd get myself one of those free, great-looking tents that they're giving away, and one of those umbrellas, and I'd go to the beach. Of course, their object is to stop you from getting an education. So, hey, stupid, wake up. You're protesting and boycotting your future, and these idiots staying next to you are holding up manufactured signs or getting paid to ruin your education and even do away with graduation because they can't get another job. If I were you, I'd go to my dorm room and hand make signs that say, Nazis go home, since that's who these idiot students are emulating, and hold them standing next to those who are making you look like a fool and a coward. If you don't fight back, yell louder, scream the truth, and not back down, you might as well go home and give up any chance of being successful because you don't deserve the wealth of being educated. Oh, and by the way, it's not going to stop at the schools. Hezbollah is in our country right now. Think about it. Just saying. Ciao.